Y'all had better get ready, because me and the boys are stringing up the lights, unpacking the whole sleigh, and like Santa emptying his sack on Christmas Eve, we ain't holding nothing back. When you say someone is a killer at elk hunting, or just about anything else in life, why is that? What separates them from the rest? Is it their preparation, their ability to read the environment, their determination, or their instincts to act when the moment is right? In this series, we'll be diving deep into what it takes not just to pursue elk, but consistently succeed. This is the juice, y'all. This series is about giving you insights to begin harnessing those instincts and break down the elements that turn an elk hunter into a closer. That discussion, our listener shout outs, and questions from our awesome ElkBros mailbox. So, my friends, pull up a chair, adjust your volumes just right, and welcome to Blue Collar Elk Hunting.
Welcome to Blue Collar Elk Hunting, brought to you by ElkBros.com, with your host Gilbert Ornelas and elk hunting coach Joe Gillia. You want to hunt elk? They live to hunt elk. Their goal is to share with you what they have learned grinding it out for over 35 seasons, doing what they love. So come on into camp and set a spell. Welcome to Blue Collar Elk Hunters.
Hello there, everyone. If it's your first time with us, glad to have you. Hope you enjoy our show. And as always, for our blue collar hunters following our show and grinding it out with us every week, welcome back to Elk Camp. I'm Gilbert Ornelas, the host of your show, coming to you from Spring, Texas. And joining me today, that's right, we got our brother to the north, the man that owns Wapiti River Outdoors, Mr. Travis O'Shea. We have our elk hunting coach in the house, Mr. Chico Gallegos. Joe Gillia is in the house. That's right, WWJGD is here, and joining us from the southern part of New Mexico, we want to welcome our special guest, Mr. Ralph Ramos. What's going on?
Hey, Ralph, I had to give you that kind of,
welcome.
big applause, man, because, when you work in education system, you don't get a whole lot of that.
No, you don't. I'm kind of locked up right now. Now, what's going on here? Thank you for having me on tonight.
We brought a little WWE, UFC into the ElkBros introduction, brother. That's for sure.
I love it.
Welcome, Mr. Ramos. Welcome, brother.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, dude. So this is the first time that my fellas here have ever met you. You and I got to meet down in Albuquerque when we were doing seminars down there at the archery shop. And man, I tell you what, it was such a pleasure meeting you, Ralph. And
Likewise.
I had heard your name through the grapevine. In fact, one of my former athletes, other than Chico up there, another one of those athletes, I got a bunch of them out there, had said that you were the principal to his daughter back down in Cruces. So, yeah.
All right, yes.
Yeah, he had a lot of bad things to say about you, too. So,
yes. I know how that goes.
No, man. He spoke very, very highly of you. So, introduce yourself to everybody for us.
All right. Well, thank you again. Thank you, Elk Brothers, for having me here.
Hold on. We're going to correct that because Mark Carlton does the same thing. Our brother Mark, he always calls us Elk Brothers, and it's Elk
Bros,
man. Because
bros.
This is New Mexico.
Yeah, bros.
Hey, I like that, bros. Mucho más bueno.
Mucho más bueno.
All right, here we go. No, well, thank you. No, Elk Bros, it's been exciting. And in fact, this past summer when we did meet, I knew you were going to be doing an elk seminar there, and I had heard about the Elk Bros, and I'm like, well, who are these guys? And I had a good friend, Rod Yoxich, and he goes, you're going to love these guys. And
I know Rodney real well.
And you guys will definitely top it off because, number one, you're both educators, and we are, and that's our business. And I retired from the public schools for 30 years. And really, I still miss the kids, but I really love what I'm doing. I've done elk seminars now for since I was back in, I guess it'd be 33 years now, since 1991. And it's like tonight, everybody wants to know how to get better. what do you do? What works for you? How do you seal the deal at the end? How do you just put it all together year after year? And I've just been really blessed by the good Lord. I really, he's the one that has provided me with some skills that I've learned through trial and error for 33 years, guiding elk hunters, not only hunting for myself, because here in New Mexico, it's hard to draw a tag, but I've harvested myself at least 30 elk. But I've been involved with 408 different elk, and that's from cow elk hunts to archery, muzzleloader rifle. It's been nice to have an opportunity to actually coach. And I love your concept. The ElkBros concept is right in line with my vision, because I've been doing coaching myself and educating even the White Mountain Apache Reservation in Arizona, our neighbors.
Oh, awesome, man.
On teaching them how to call in elk and you work different strategies. And that's what I think I've learned over the years is, versatility and having a lot of things in your pocket to make it happen till the very end. But I love elk hunting. It's my passion. And that's really why I retired from public school, so I can have more time to do that.
Yeah.
Last year alone, we took 17 elk. And just
Wow.
that was the guys that I guided. So it's nice to be able to be out there doing it. So with that, let's get started.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. Having guided myself for 30 years, I think the benefit that you get, because when I originally started as just a bow hunter, just as that archer out there bow hunting elk all the time, it's like you see just one part of that life cycle of those critters, and you don't really get to see the full evolution, the full process, how they move, what they do, the dynamics of the herd. And when you start guiding, and you're guiding from, beginning of September all the way through January, man, I mean, you see that entire dynamic of the herd, how those bulls change from their habits of, being away and moving, and then moving into the cows, looking for the cows, moving and developing the herd, and then how quick they want to get out to recover out of that as well, Yeah. So, and then the herd sizes, they go from large to small when they're split, and then go right back to some of those big ones. And you got those bachelor groups, and you get to see that movement and that dynamic that really defines that life cycle of those critters.
You're right on target with that, because one of the things that I knew that I got to look back at Larry D. Jones, Elk Fever 1, Elk Fever 2 videos.
Yeah.
Man, I was so intrigued by those, and I'm like, man, I want to do that. One of these days, I want to do that. Yeah. As a kid growing up, the excitement. And guess what? Actually, in 91 or 92, I got to hunt with Larry Jones, Dwight Shue, and his son. And I'm like, no, that was Christmas to me right there.
Yeah.
And getting to know the whys and how comes, and I know you cow call, and I know how to cow call, but okay. And then we were having a hard time. It was actually pretty cool, because Larry was having a hard time stimulating Gila bulls. And New Mexico is sometimes unique, and you got to pull everything out of your hat. So we pulled out some rattling horns and started popping them and arguing back and forth with bugles, team calling, and we started getting some chuckles. And so we induced those bulls to start giving up their location. But 33 years out in the woods, let me tell you, really the last 10 years have paid off, because the previous years were nothing but trial and error and mistakes. But I always dissected what happened. Why? How come? What can I do different? And that's where locating, and then setup, and then of course wind direction. And I think wind, and and I don't know if we have time for that kind of what you want to know tonight from me, but wind was a major deal, which really changed my success, not only for myself when you're solo hunting, because
the landscape of how you hunted,
team calling and solo hunting and what you're going to do, but that versatility of having all those tools in your pocket, I think, is what's really, again, the good Lord has blessed me to have success year after year, 100%. And adjusting to your hunters is the other thing. That's crazy because some guys come out of shape and some guys are, I mean, Todd Lodwick, Olympic medalist, Nordic combined, world-class athlete. Now I had to be in shape to keep up with that guy, so, but anyways, again, I get excited. I can talk all night. And,
oh yeah. And
Joe,
it's going to happen, man.
Yeah.
And
give me a timeout and say, hey, Ralph.
We're absolutely going to get there for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what's so cool about this. And shoot, we might even have you back with us, Ralph, because the reason I wanted you here is because you are a killer. And here's the other thing that when you guide people, and we're not going to go into this right now because we're going to save this for the end, but it's just food for thought for our listeners, because that whole thing about being a killer, people sometimes they shy away from that term because it's just like people want to go out and kill animals, kill.
Yeah.
And that's not what we mean by this, right? But you can talk to any guide that has had people out there. Chico experienced this year, and I know Travis experienced it, I know Gil's experienced it, and you'll be with guys and you'll get in situations that don't pan out. And a lot of time it's done very simplistically, but it has a lot of meaning to it, is that, well, the dude's just not a killer. He didn't have that instinct of when to move, or wouldn't go in for the kill, or
he didn't know how to switch that on. He didn't know how to switch that on.
There's some people that, there's hunters, and there's a lot of people that they just don't have that experience to draw from. And so that's where, as a guide, you almost got to be on that shoulder. And even though there's two of you, it's not team calling. It's more, it's almost solo calling because you're on their shoulder, right?
It totally is.
In the sales world that I've worked in for over 30 years, there are great setup men, and then there are great closers. The closers are the ones that get paid. And at the end of the day, we got to have those. You got to have those farmers, man, that are out there tilling the soil and everything. But if you don't have a killer or a harvester, you're going to go hungry, right? A closer. So that's what we talk about. And this is absolutely the nuts and bolts, what Joe and I are going to dive into here in just a little bit.
Yeah, because that's like Chico and I were talking. And when you talk about hunting elk and killing elk, to Chico and to myself, that especially people that are hunters, that are killers, that's all one and the same. We go into a hunt with an intent of punching that tag, right?
For sure.
There's no difference in that. But what we're talking about, and what we're going to be talking about here tonight, isn't really so much that distinction, trying to divide that up. What we're trying to do is show that designation of why those people, what is
successful,
that they're doing different? Why is it that we have 95% of the people out there that can't get it done? And they want to know why. All right. They want to know why that's not happening. And so we're going to go deeper into that. And what's going to happen from this show tonight, y'all, is there's going to be things that we're going to say that I'm going to write down, because some of it seems simplistic and you can almost skim over it, that actually needs to really be dug into in depth, so that people that don't have that can acquire it and understand the work that it takes to acquire, the experience it takes to acquire, right? Those types of things, and then start to really define those parts to try to give them the juice, try to give them the things that can help them have a path to find a way to get to that, so that they are a hunter and a killer. They have the confidence and the tool set and the know-how to finish, to close the deal. Okay. So that's where we're going. That's where it's going to go tonight, man.
I'm excited. My brain's just going. Gosh, in fact, I'm thinking of Coach Reggie Theus, NBA All-Star, and I was able to hunt with him. And I tell you, when it finally clicked in his head what we're going to talk about, and he mastered it, boy, he was a killing machine.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it
Yep.
takes that translation, it takes that switch, and many of us get it quickly, and some of us take a little while to get to it, right? But once you do it your first time, it gets easier, and
Right.
then all of a sudden you start understanding that, the biggest thing that we're going to talk about are some of the simplest things, but they're the hardest ones to do. So I'm looking forward to unpacking that for sure.
Yeah, and before we move on, there's something I wanted to point out to you guys, man.
Sure.
I just saw that, and you know that we produce our own bugle tube here at ElkBros and stuff. And I know there's a lot of hunters out there that have bugle tubes that they really, really like. I just want to point out that ours is so good that the elk actually prefer using our tube over there. You see that?
Oh, Joe.
Yeah. I just saw that, man. I looked behind me. I said, man, is that bull blowing on our tube back there? Yeah. So, Ralph, welcome to the show. I'm excited. We got a great group here, and I think it's going to be perfect for getting this series started tonight. So, let's rock on.
Joe, you want to dive into our Elk Bros mailbox?
Absolutely, dude. Yeah, let's do that, man. Because this was a pretty good question. It's one that I haven't heard before. This is from Travis Cabo of Greenville, North Carolina. And Travis' question is, he said, my question is about heading down into draws where I know sign is and bedding areas are found. Okay. With the wind in your face, is it better to now here we go, Ralph? It's coming up where you were talking about wind, right? Okay.
Right.
With the wind in your face, is it better to approach ravines draws down, up the center, or on the side hill lateral type area? So do you want to hit it, from the draw part of it from up high? Do you want to hit it down the bottom? Do you want to come up the center? Do you want to come? That's his question. I want to minimize sound scent and well as maximize my visual opportunity for spotting elk before they sense me. So before I hit anything, I'm going to let everybody else kind of decipher what they're hearing out of this. And Ralph, with our guest, man, what do you tell Travis there?
All right, Travis, great question, and definitely, I like to start from on top. I always like to, I call it the early bird gets the elk, and I like to go in at dark early on, and really the key thing is locating elk. I start out really soft with cow calls, cow calf calls, trying to entice a bull to give up his location, but then I lead into some bugling. But I like to start out on the top of ridge lines. And it's one of those things that you think, you hunt smarter, not harder. I've even gotten to the point where I have an e-bike where I'll drive, let's say 3 miles up the road, leave the e-bike, come back, drive, park the truck, climb up on top and work my way to the e-bike to hunt my way there. So to me, that's really, saves your legs, because we average at least, 10 miles a day, hunting elk, at least from my elk camp anyway, sometimes 12, but just all depends. But as far as the wind, you kind of want it in your favor, but not necessarily. To me, I gotta hear an elk. I gotta see where they're at, and then I adjust for the wind. And then, once the bull bugles, then you gotta, I like to move in and close the gap as quickly as I can. But also I like to get the wind, what I call 50-50, the 50-50 rule. Yeah. And I wrote an article on that.
Crosswind.
Yeah, cross.
Yes, crosswind, exactly. Yeah. Because bulls, if you're going to call them in, most of the time, if the wind's totally in your favor, he's not going to play ball. Those are the bulls that'll hang up and bugle and demand for you to go to him, and it makes it more harder, for you to do that.
And those bulls are masters at using their thermals too, right? They know how that thermal's working,
They do, but and really, again, I like to start up on top, but doesn't mean that if you're working a long draw from the bottom as you're working to the top, doesn't mean you can't call and try to see what's in the area, because the key thing is you don't want to blow elk out either, but And then is it, what's the habitat look like? Is it open country where you can
So
glass?
that's where you hit a biggie right there, man, because
Mhm.
there's so many variables when you talk about this, because it sounds to me like he has draws where he knows there's bedding area and that there's elk probably bedded in that draw.
Yeah, but are we in Montana in those
Yeah,
long
and is it
type
open? Is it
coulees
is
or
it
yeah?
well treed? Because,
Mhm.
if you start coming from the side on some of those draws and it's an open side like that,
Yeah.
sometimes you're putting yourself at a disadvantage because those elk want to be able to
Silhouette.
see what that other elk looks like up there, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If it's a draw and I know that there's elk in there because I've heard them and they're bedded down in it, already there, and I know they're in there, I'm just like with you, Ralph. The wind is going to be the wind. A lot of times I have to deal with what I'm given. I don't, yeah. A lot of times, and that's one reason a lot of times they bed down in some of those bowls because they
Yeah,
need
they
that
got you.
wind in there, right?
They got you. Yeah.
So you got to actually wait till you have things in your favor. And if they're bedded, you got plenty of time for that to happen because you have a captured audience, right? And for me, a lot of times I just kind of want to be on their level where I am obscured in that, and where I can actually position myself and just wait, man, till I get a bull. If there's a bull in there and he's been active and there's a point where he comes out of with that bed bugle and he actually bugles because he's getting up and he's going to do something. Now it's time for me to actually be able to work him without going in and giving myself away, because I always feel like it's better for elk to come to me than me to go to elk, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my question too, Joe, is he's asking about heading down into draws. And
He's
for
saying,
me,
should he head down into it or should he be
yeah,
at the
or
bottom?
should he be at the
Yeah.
bottom or start from the top?
Yeah.
Man, I don't ever give up elevation if I don't have to, right? I'm
Mm.
telling you straight up, we work too hard to get it and then to go give it up, especially if you're not hearing elk down there, right? If you're getting no response and they're there, well, if you know they're there and you've put eyes on them or whatever, try to figure out what that travel corridor looks like and beat them to that next pinch that they got to go to either go to water or go down to feed or go down to wallow or whatever. But that's going to help with your scouting, right? And understanding their travel habits. But for me, I'm not losing elevation unless I hear a bull respond to either my calling or responding to another call. I'm not dropping into that drain just to go and see if I can put eyes on elk. I'm going to sit up there and do what I need to do in glass and sporadically call and like Mr. Ramos said, even use rattling horns to get a bull to pop off, right?
I
And
love the I
yeah,
love that he mentioned horns, man,
yeah.
because so many people never mention the rattling, man, Ralph,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
that's a huge key.
It's a huge game changer, and I can talk an hour about that
Ralph, do
alone.
you
But
guys use whitetail horns or mule deer horns, or do you actually use the elk horns?
elk horns, yes, sir.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
A nice 6x6 shed, and I like to cut them in half like a 320 bull.
Yeah.
That is
Oh,
perfect. Cut them in half, drill some holes, get a lanyard, and you can throw them,
There you go.
over your
yeah. I
back.
like that idea. I like
And
that
Keep mine
idea.
on my pack.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There you
you
go. Yeah. There you
Yes,
go.
yes. Yeah, and really the bigger the better
Right. Yeah.
is what I have found out, because there's different ways to rattle, whether you're scraping and
Yeah.
popping horns or
That's
you're
right.
actually simulating an actual fight.
Fight. Yeah.
And of course for the fight you want the bigger horns, and what a game changer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yep.
think and when Gilbert, when you were talking about never giving up elevation, a lot of times when we think about where we hunt, we're always in such thick treed area as well.
Yeah.
So having
Yeah.
that
We use that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we have a lot of cover and stuff like that. But if you're like there's a spot in one of our units that we hunt that is pretty much mesa, and then it creates ravines into it. And if you come to the edge of that and you do any kind of calling, man, I guarantee you're going to be busted. So
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
yeah.
Well, and the same thing, like Ralph was saying, he starts up on the ridges, get up in there. It's cool first thing in the morning. So that all those thermals are going down because that cold
Exactly.
air is falling. And those elk know that. They're coming up into the thermals. And then, 8:30, 9 o'clock, that changes. That's kind of where they bed down. So you want to be real careful if you decide to dive in off that ridge and go down to where they're bugling at, because they're coming up at the same time.
Yeah, Trav, one thing though, because again, all the country brings perspective. Like, I never realized your perspective till I got in your country, but like you take Ralph's country down there, there's some areas, yes, that we have some hills that go up pretty big, but you get down some of that Gila country, it's just rolling all over the place down there. And
Creek bottoms.
yeah, and a lot of these critters will either just stay on top of these small ridges there.
Yeah.
They'll get up on top of there, or they'll drop in instead of coming up and like that. They're actually up and dropping in and on the sides.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
In some of those places. So there's so many variables with the environment that the elk have.
Yeah.
Lots of variables. And again, tree cover or flat, roamy hills, like you're saying. And I found that even setting up and calling for another hunter, you got to back out a whole lot. And I know that's probably another night to talk about, but, you know, setting up is critical. And to me, you know, I have written the article on the X zone, you know, where you have the hunter in the middle of the X and your caller in the back and you're moving left, right, you know, depending on what that bull's doing. And
do you have any of that online, Ralph?
You know what? I don't, but I could definitely forward you. I have some great graphics that explain that. And I you know, either for Zoom meetings like this or whatever, but no, I've written articles. I've been featured on a couple bow hunting magazines, Bow Hunting World. Mike Strandland, the editor, we've lost him already, but boy, he hunted with me several times. And that X zone is what the system that we came up with, that you've got to use it, but in the call, the hunter's in the middle of the X, you back out. Of course, you get the wind right. Now with a 50-50 rule, more than likely if it's going crosswind to your left, that bull's going to come underneath you on the left side. But as far as the caller, you know, if it's dense country, like you're saying, you know, kind of, you know, you want to back out, you know, 40-50 yards. But if you're in open country, more flat, cedar type of country, I like to back out even like 120, you know, maybe 150 yards. But there's also a lot of learning with that, with the shooter.
I was going to say, man, you got to have a killer with you.
You do, because my job as a caller is to keep that bull talking, and the shooter has to have that instinct to close that gap. You know, and I remember, and I'm going to use Reggie Theus because he picks on me and I'll pick on him tonight. Great guy. I love hunting with him. He was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? He was a first time elk hunter with me. And boy, when I started telling him, look, and we both had elk tags too that one year. And we were on, and you know, when you get on that typical bull, when you call and he goes away, you call and he's moving away and he's just going, you go for, you know, a couple miles on these open flat mixes that you're talking about. And I finally said, Reggie, just don't worry about being seen. Close the gap, move in. When you see a patch of elk, then you can slow down and hunker down. Of course, he's almost 7 foot tall.
He is, big fella.
But you got to close it.
Big guy.
And he got a little frustrated. He goes, well, why don't you do it? And all he had was a hoochie mama. I go, well, just keep blowing on that hoochie mama. Keep them talking for me. And sure enough, I closed in the, you know, on that bull, and I took off sprinting. And I saw a patch of elk and I squatted. I hunkered down really quick. And then he kept calling. He bugled. The bull kind of got hidden. And I sprinted another 20 yards. And I just kept closing in. Finally, I got within like 60 yards. And he kept doing that hoochie mama. And that's probably not the best call anyway. So, you know, you use these different calls and you can induce that bull to come in even quicker or entice him. But anyways, I ended up shooting that bull, and he goes, oh my God, I learned so much just right there watching you move. And you have camouflage for a reason. And I will tell you one thing, ElkBros, I would love to really hook you all up with Hex because that stuff really works, especially for bow elk hunting. It's incredible how it's also changed my game, calling an elk and being undetected. Of course, the wind can always get you, but you can get away with a lot, especially when you're closing the gap, you know, and really sealing the deal and making it, you know, all come together at the end.
Sure.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. Camo is critical. We found we've been using 2.0 camo for the last couple years, and the pattern's just done a great job for us, man. But anything that's going to give you that edge, and that's the one thing that you have to understand, you know, when you're taking a look at this, Travis, is that there's going to be so many different variables that's going to create things. You are in a solo situation, so you're trying to figure that out. But the main and most important thing is, for me, is to create a situation, especially if you have them bedded, where you're not going in. Now, if you have a deal, and I've done it, I've spotted them, and I've been able to, because the terrain was perfect for it, been able to stalk in and get get a shot on an animal that's bedded. But
Especially if a
generally,
bull's bugling out of his bed,
yeah,
you know.
but most of the time, your advantage is if they're moving and you're still. If you're
That's right.
moving and they're still,
Mhm.
you're at a disadvantage. So, whatever you try to do in whichever way the terrain works for you,
Yep.
be patient. You have more time than you think you do if they're bedded. They're not going anywhere. So make sure that you check out what that is, what the environment's like, and what's going to give you the best advantage. All right,
Yeah,
man?
and the most important thing is the wind has to be right. Can't even
Yeah.
go in there if the wind ain't right, or
That's
you'll
right.
burn them down. You'll burn them all out of that canyon. You'll burn them all out of that little draw. I mean, there's no reason to do it. They're in there. Just hang in there till it'll change. The wind's gonna change, and like Mr. Ramos said, if you can get a 50-50, roll up in there and go kill an elk, man. But if it's wrong, back out, man.
Mhm.
Can't tell you how many times this year I had bulls talking to me and it was wrong. Everything was wrong about it. And I had to tell our client that, hey man, I was coaching these guys. I'm like, look, we're just gonna ruin this whole setup and
Yeah.
educate this bull. And we don't need to. We gotta back out,
And before we move on to our next segment, I just want to
Sure.
make sure that our listeners understand Ralph's 50-50. And what he's saying is, if you have the wind in your face, it's 100% in your favor.
That's
If
right.
elk has the wind in their face, it's 100% in their favor.
Yeah.
When you have a crosswind going across, it's a 50-50 situation there. So they're a little bit more comfortable in that situation because they're not giving up total wind. And that's where Ralph says that a lot of times, and it does happen, especially as they start to get a little bit of educated, or if it's a situation where they should see something or they're just a little bit on edge, they're going to try to go to that downwind side. Not
will.
always, because I can tell you, you convince them enough, they'll come in sometimes in a beeline, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You end up with
That's
that
right,
funnel.
man.
So there's what you have with that, man. And
Great
let's,
question, Travis.
yeah, great
Mhm.
question. So Gil, let's rock and roll.
Well, guys, you know what time it is. It's time for the
Shout
ElkBros
out.
shout out.
Shout
If you're new to our show, this is
Shout
just a
out.
shout out to our followers in a few cities with the most listeners topping our charts this week, Joe.
Yes, sir. This top listening city this week, and I love this, man, because this is, has a significant Italian American community with many Italian restaurants. And I want you to know this is Giglia here, right? Bakeries
Mexico accent all of a sudden.
at festivals celebrating the Italian heritage. And here's what's cool is home. It's funny, all this Italian heritage, but it's home to the first ever McDonald's franchise location. Ray Kroc opened it up in 1959, 2 years before I was born, which was a key moment in the fast food giant's expansion. And this was in Addison, Illinois. Yeah.
Listen, Illinois in the house.
Addison, Illinois, man. Illinois actually, that's the state where two of our top listeners come from this week. Oh, as far as tradition for Italian, my daughter and I went to go visit my daughter in Massachusetts, and our family, there was tradition that they always made brillata. It's a stuffed bread, and Italian stuffed bread. And my daughter and I have been able to get together and make it for the last couple years together. So that's been pretty special. So,
Fantastic.
Gil.
Joe, our next top listening city is home to the ancient Native American burial mounds dating back over 1,000 years, named after the French word tremper, meaning to dip, referring to a rock formation in the Mississippi River that early French explorers thought resembled a mountain dipping into the water. In Trempeleur, Wisconsin.
Okay. Is that really how you say it, dude? Or you?
Trempeleur.
Yeah, I was like, man, he says it just like he knows what he's talking about, man. Did you? Have
So
you been
some
there?
would say Trempeleur, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know how the Wisconsin people say it.
Uh-huh.
That's how we saw it. I have not been there, but I've been just south of there in La Crosse, Wisconsin,
Okay.
and fished a bass tournament there in La Crosse, Wisconsin on the Mississippi River. And it was one of the most phenomenal places I've ever fished in my life. The headwaters up there in the Mississippi.
So Travis, did he hit that word tremper? Did he hit that right?
I don't know, honestly.
Well, if my brother to the north in that French country can't tell me, then I think I hit it spot on, Joe.
I'm on the preferred west side.
He's on the preferred west side.
That's what's funny when we went up to Canada up there, everything's in French, all that stuff.
A
Man.
lot of it, yeah.
I thought Travis was gonna give us a lesson in French. He's like, no, I don't speak.
No,
No
sir.
habla.
That's right. Hey,
No habla.
No.
That's
My
hilarious.
brother Chico, you up next, brother.
Well, better Gilbert than me on that one. I'd have really messed that one up.
Actually, your name was in there first, and I switched it, man.
You know, I wasn't gonna get past that one. I'd had to some technical difficulties with my Zoom. I had to been logged off there for a bit. Up next, this city is home to the long-standing Leo's Coney Island, which has become famous for its hot dogs and Coney dogs. It has been serving the community for over 60 years and has an unusually devoted following for a hot dog spot in such a small town. Clawson, Michigan.
Clawson, Michigan.
Awesome, Michigan.
Wow.
All right,
That's
so
cool.
Gil, I'm going to the expert.
Yeah.
What's the difference between a hot dog and a Coney dog?
Well, a hot dog down here in the United States is a weenie and bun, and a hot dog on the eastern seaboard is a Coney dog because it comes from Coney Island, so that's why they call that the Coney, right? So the difference is just in location of where it's made, Joe. It's pretty much the same thing, and what they put on it. The Coney dog can be. There's all kinds of different type of Coney dogs. A hot dog here in the States, you either putting chili and cheese on it. Here down in the South, we call it a chili cheese dog. We have a Coney Island here in Texas that's a chain of hot dog restaurants that's been around for a long time. But the Coney actually started up there on
Coney Island.
Coney Island, yeah.
Yeah,
up in
yeah.
the eastern
But
seaboard.
I thought maybe it was, I thought there was something different with the bun, or I've seen where they just have the whole bun and it's just like a circle in the middle and the hot dogs all the way through. I've seen kind of like that someplace, but I figured I'd defer to the expert because to me, I've heard Chicago dog, right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And that's a whole different type of Coney dog, right? They put peppers on it and stuff like that. It's just a different way that they make them. But they'll have that in a Coney Island or something like that. And Clawson's kind of like right here, Joe. It's just above Detroit. So when you Michiganders, they all use their hand when they do it. So I hope they get to see that and laugh about it. My wife's family's from Michigan, so I learned a lot about Michigan growing up there, and they're from just outside of Detroit. So Clawson's right there north of
Gil,
Detroit.
I think you just invented something.
What's that?
You know how they got the Philly cheesesteak?
Yes.
You're mentioning peppers and onions and all that. Now you got the Philly cheese dog.
The Philly cheese dog. I bet them people from Philly already dominated that, brother.
Oh, probably, eh?
Yeah, for sure.
All right, man. Travis, you
Okay.
get the last one.
Okay, our last top city hosts an annual goldfish derby, celebrating the role of the goldfish in the local economy, which also has origins tied to early immigration communities, and is also home to one of the largest and most diverse toy stores in the U.S. The Toy Chest is known for its eclectic collection of toys and games, making it a unique demand hub for toy shoppers. Naperville, Illinois.
Is
Phil?
Naperville?
Naperville, or is it Naperville?
Naperville.
Okay,
Naperville, Illinois.
right on.
Could be Naperville, but I would think it's Naperville.
Yeah.
The way the Chicagans.
What is it,
probably-
Chico? How
it's
how
a
would you want
suburb
to
of
say it,
Chicago.
Chico?
Why are you asking me? I think it's.
Why you want to do this?
I think it's Naperville.
You're the cultured one of the group, man. You've lived in Cruces, you've lived in New York, you've lived in Vegas.
Joe told me you're very educated.
He
I'm
is.
He is. He's the dadgum attorney.
Indian over here in New Mexico, but I think that's Naperville. Yes, that sounds better.
in
Better.
Naperville.
I think Naperville.
I like it.
Well,
Yeah.
I like it either way. But it's a suburb of Chicago, so
That's
I
my
could just call it Chicago, man.
that's my
folks
final
from
answer.
Naperville, give us a yell.
We're not gonna phone a friend. We're not gonna do any of that. It's Naperville.
Yeah, we're not phoning a friend.
All right, y'all. Main content and
Hey, so for my buddy Guy Duplantier, who's not with us today, he would say main content.
all right, man. I want our listeners out there to know that tonight's show, this is going to be the spark. It's going to be the catalyst for our series. And our series is Killer Instinct, Unlocking Success in Elk Hunting. All right. And I'm telling you this, get ready, because we are going to beat this subject to death, because through all the
matters.
conversations, like we can have, we got Ralph on now. I mean, we could have my buddy Tony on here. We've got Travis on here. We got Chico on here. Gilbert, who has been a killer, man. He's just been a killer for years and years. I've had a couple of elk under my belt.
Just a few.
And, you can have anybody on here. And a lot of times when they talk about how they're successful, a lot of people that have done that have gone through the process, that have done the things that Ralph had said, that have done the trial and error, a lot of times they forget more than what most people know, right? Because they after a while, you start to take some of that for granted, and you kind of skim over it on what it took to get there, and what those realizations were, and what makes it. And y'all,
It took quite a bit of failure, Joe. It really did. I mean, to get better, we had to fail some, and then once you get, like I said, once you get the first one, brother, y'all told me this long ago, 15, 16 years ago, that once you got the first one, quit holding out. Once you got the first one, it gets easier. That it was never more true.
Well,
and you learn how to finish.
it starts to
that is
connect the
huge.
dots. And what we're going to do with this series is we want to try to connect the dots, because when it comes to elk hunting, most guys feel like they work their butts off, but they just aren't able to. And sometimes the stars line up. Sometimes everything lines up and it happens, right? But they are not able to consistently put it all together. And this question came from one of our listeners, and he's like, I never hear you guys talk about this in depth. You talk about what you do, what's your skill set, like Chico said, we talk about different aspects of the hunt and stuff, but they want to know why it is that some people can consistently do it. What makes some hunters more efficient and effective killers, right? What is it about them that's different? Is it their preparation, their focus, their ability to adapt? Is it their mindset, their skills, their strategies? Or is it their ability to read the environment, their determination, or their instinct to act when the moment's right? Now, I think we can go through all those and go, yes. So what we want to do is, and I'm going to start with Ralph, and I know, Ralph, again, it's real easy to go back to being technical on some of these things. But you think about the killers that you know, yourself and the other people around you, and all of us are going to do this, right? And we're all going to have different parts to add to this. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take some of those aspects, and then we are going to come on another show, and we're going to continue to define and dig into that to try to continually connect the dots. And what's great about a group like this is we all have different perspectives. Chico comes from an incredible perspective. Travis with what he deals with in a whole different environment. Ralph down south. Gil, from what you've been through all these years with us here, and me up here up north, right? And we're going to pull some other people in with some perspectives. But with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask this of you, and I'm going to let you start, and I'm going to, Ralph, with you first.
Yeah.
And then we're going to go to Chico from that. But what are the biggest things most
I want
are
the
missing?
number one thing. I want the number one thing.
You want the number one thing.
I don't, damn all the rest of it. I want the juice. Give me that one thing that keeps everybody from closing. The one thing.
What is it? All right.
What
If
is it,
you could
Ralph?
say, Ralph, that it's one thing that the people are missing in closing the deal, what is it?
Oh boy, and that's a tough question, but I will tell you one thing that I think the biggest thing is wind direction. Especially if you're out there trying to call a bull in. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, if you're just going out there to kill one, and it's different. But to me, elk hunting is about calling in a bull into bow range and sealing the deal. And to me, wind, if you don't have the wind right, it ain't gonna happen. Bow hunting.
Won't even see one, will you, Ralph?
Mhm.
Right.
You won't even see an elk if the wind's wrong.
Right. Well, you might see their tail end as they
Exactly.
and
They're
go,
leaving.
but,
Yeah.
Exactly.
But I can't stress enough that if you have the 50-50, and I keep going back to that because that has changed the game big time.
Yeah.
And they will always try to come downwind. And I always try to set up that X zone where it's just easier to call in a bull, plain and
It is.
simple, whether you're
Yeah.
rattling, whether you're bugling, whether you're cow calling, because the key thing to elk hunting is when you hear and you locate a bull, what type of bull are you dealing with? Is he a herd bull? Is he a satellite bull? What's it going to take to call him in, to suck him in to, 20 yards?
Yep.
And once you kind of get an idea, and it takes years of experience, with that. And once you kind of figure that out,
Mhm.
then you go and you set up differently, for all these scenarios. But the other thing is having drive. Probably number two is having the drive to close and seal the gap. And I don't think humans can move fast enough, moving in on elk as well. And I know that, oh gosh, like I said, I can talk forever because there's two different styles of using the X zone. One is where the caller's gonna call for that shooter and it's stationary. You're gonna play patience and work that bull till he comes in. Or there's number two, a different way. You move that X zone, you move that hunter in the middle. He follows where the bull's bugling, and the caller in the back's his job is to keep that bull talking so the shooter can know where he's at. But that's when you get aggressive and you move in on them. And really for someone who's trophy hunting, that's the best style because you can go in there, get within 100 yards of the bull, size them up, whether you're going to pass them up or decide to kill them. But also, when you're going to kill them, you have that window of opportunity that you got to take advantage of, whether it's you're going to stay put or you're going to move in and be ready. And I like drawing a bow. In fact, I remember guiding Pete Shepley from PSE, 15 years ago. Pete, we need a 90% let off bow, something that you can draw early and be ready when that bull's coming in.
Yeah.
So you're on it. Yes, sir.
Ralph said something that I think is the number one key thing for me, and I will only say this one time. You have to draw your bow. If you do not draw your bow, that bull will walk out of your life. I promise you. If you draw your bow, you will find a way to get that arrow into that animal. If
Right.
you don't, I promise you that elk will walk out of your life. And he may still walk out of your life with you drawn, but
Sure.
you have the opportunity to let it go. If you never draw, you will never have that opportunity. And I think that's one of
Yeah.
the most important things that people who have a trouble with closing is they don't draw their bow.
They don't draw their bow and they're too busy doing this with a rangefinder.
Yeah,
You know, and I start out with basics. Well, as soon as somebody books a hunt with me, I tell them, look, go to 20 yards, use your 40-yard pin, aim at that one spot with your 40-yard pin, and I'll guarantee you're going to be about 3 to 4 inches high, depending how fast your bow is. So
Yeah.
get used to using your 40-yard pin, aiming at the heart every time. Don't be range finding. When they're still range finding, they should already be locked in that pop
Yeah.
on them.
Exactly.
Seal the deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Let it, gotta draw, man.
Yeah,
And
because-
Gotta
let it
draw.
fly.
Ralph, you were talking about the calling, you were talking about the wind, all right? So many of these people that we're working with are solo hunters, all right?
Yep.
So take that same scenario if you know, because now it's a different deal, right?
Mhm.
So how do they handle that?
That's when the solo hunter has to be more aggressive. You call, I still call. In fact, it's funny because when it's my turn to hunt, you know, everybody's got to work or do something.
Exactly.
You know,
Yes.
so you're stuck. And so I've really been lucky when a cameraman can come, because I like to video all my hunts and kind of, you know, to use it as that educational tool again. But to me, as a solo hunter, you've got to locate them, move in, and just close that gap and keep calling, you know, whenever you can, you know, but that's when wind is even more important, because, and then also doing your homework, you know, and knowing the travel routes where those elk are going, where more likely they're going to go and bed up, you know, having a good idea. And to me, scouting is very important. You know, and again, we can talk hours on each one of these sections on what's important and how to scout. But, you know, to me,
well, and see, that's where we're getting that's where it gets into the technical and it gets into the tactics and and it does all that. And here's,
And I'm looking for the juice.
and what I'm talking about is that it's like anything, man. There's a lot of players in a game.
Yeah.
There's only so many Michael Jordans, right?
Yeah.
There's only so many masters. I mean, it happens in everything. It happens in elk hunting. It happens in golf. It happens in business. It happens, you know, those closers, you know, what is it? How are they different? And what is it that other people can aspire to? And yeah, we can teach them this stuff like wind. But I guarantee you, and here's what I'm talking about, Ralph, is I can take you and I can take somebody that I educate on wind, and I could put you guys both in opportunistic situations. You'll kill an elk. That person probably won't. There's a 95% chance that person won't, right? And why is that? What does Ralph Ramos have in that daggone head, heart, and body that I don't have in this other person?
well, number one is the good Lord.
There you go.
Divine intervention.
That's number one. You know,
Divine intervention.
because you know what, he provides me with a gut instinct at the time of the moment, and he's provided me with multiple versatile things in my head to adjust. But a lot of times when you know that bull is right there within 75 yards, but it's thick and you may not get a shot, and he's moving, you need to cut the gap and move. And if there's that tree that I'm seeing right there with my eyes, and it's only 15 yards away, and I've got to get there, and that's going to give me a better angle or shot, my guts tell me to do it. Dang it, don't think about it. Do it.
Do it. Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah.
Move, and get in
Yeah,
there.
listen to your gut instincts,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Your gut's really probably, you know, in our training when I was with the sheriff department, your gut was something that you never needed to second guess.
Yeah.
It was something that led you in the right direction all the time. And Chico, I know in the spirit world that you guys, have your gut is everything, right? It's a vision almost that you see. So at the end of the day, for me, it's the same thing. When we flip that switch, it goes into that vision mode on how I'm going to kill that elk, and we make a decision. Come hell or high water, we're going to make it happen, right?
You're going to make it happen, Gilbert. And I've got to say this because I talk about it in my seminars, is that, yes, I video my hunts.
Yeah.
But every TV show that I see, every elk scenario that I see, I lock it in right here.
Yeah.
And I dissect. Okay, yeah, he drew and he killed that bull. Beautiful. But what would I have done different?
Sure.
Would I had moved? Would I had stayed there? Would I have drawn earlier? What did they do? Or if they blow it on TV, and they show that as well.
They should.
And that's
more often. Yeah.
If you would have just moved a little more or paid more attention to that wind, but of course the wind is going to do whatever it wants. It's going to go right at the heat of the moment. So that's another thing that you've got to always have in the back of your mind. When that bull's coming in, what's that wind doing? If it's starting to shift, you better already be at full draw and ready for that, again, window of opportunity.
Yeah, and you may need to shift. You may need to shift your position so the wind isn't as pronounced, right? So, I mean, I think a lot, Joe, people get caught up in not moving. They're worried about the elk seeing them move when the elk's moving himself, and it's the best time to move, right? It's the best. Or if he turns to walk away from you, it's the best time to advance your position. He's not looking at you, and he's not. He may be looking at other elk or other things going on. Advance your position, get a better opportunity. But so many of us are grown up deer hunting and stuff like that, where you don't move, man. You're a statue, and that's just not how elk hunting works.
And drawing early is critical. Yeah. Drawing early, because
and I'll debate that one with you here in a few minutes, man. Because drawing is one of the biggest issues, I think, for a lot of hunters. Knowing when to draw, knowing what the opportunity time is for that to draw as well. And that's something that I'm putting on here that we're going to discuss here in a little bit, Ralph, because I love that discussion. And one thing I love about this group is we're able to do something like this because of our backgrounds and stuff. So, Chico, you've heard some of the stuff what has just resonated with you, and what is it that you want to put out there that is different about those killers, man?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you all for your input. Before I kind of get into that, just even kind of going back to the previous question, in our tradition, learning and teaching are inextricably linked. So you're always learning. And so just listening to you guys in that other, that first question, I'm cataloging everything here as you guys are talking, and I'm sure I'll take that with me, and at some point, pull that up and apply it. So thank you for always being willing to share. That's part of our tradition. We've always been teachers as well as learners. So, but I took something a little bit different from this question, and I even reached out to Joe before this, and I was a little not confused, but this question really took me to a different place. And the way I understand the question is, to this listener, to this hunter, he's talking about that moment of truth, that moment right before you release. We're talking about bow hunting here, but it's the same for the moment before you pull that trigger. For those of you who don't know, Joe Gillia knows how to shoot a rifle. I witnessed it. And there was that. And it was a 330 plus yard shot. And I just
that's not easy.
But I think the same mentality applies. Is there is that moment right before you release the arrow, right before you feel that, you just feel that the trigger on your finger, and at that moment that once that arrow is gone, you can't take it back. Once that bullet is sent, you can't take it back. And now there's going to be a life that might be extinguished because of something that you did.
Or burdened, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's what this
Definitely affected.
I think that's what this hunter is asking about, because we talk about the setup, we talk about the technicalities and the wind and the scenario and the preparation. And I think what this particular hunter might be struggling with, or might be a sticking point for him, is that moment. And how do you, because it's different for everyone. For me, it's a very emotional moment. Time really does stand still for me, and time gets elongated. So I spend a lot of time in there, in a spiritual way, understanding what I'm about to do. And so, but within that, to me, there's no distinction between hunting and killing. That is the ultimate goal. Is you're there to harvest an animal. If you're not committed to that, that's fine. Take a camera. You can do all of those things and get amazing shots, applying all these things, all these techniques, and you can get amazing pictures. This is a whole different thing. And for me, growing up, as a kid, it was always about, when do I get to go hunting? Because you would hear the people come back from hunts and tell the stories, and they talked about what they experienced, and you knew that that everybody was going to share in the harvest and the bounty, and they were going to tell the story over and over and over again, and we would sing the songs, and you knew also, as you came upon that, and this is fresh in my mind because we just did this with Joe, with Coach, is you come upon that on that animal, and she was still expiring. So her spirit was, and we gave her permission. I even told her, I said, it's okay to go now. You're okay to go. And to me, that's what that moment is about. All the other technical stuff, that's technical stuff. Your bow, your release, the wind, how you got there. The way I see the question is, who are you as a hunter? Who are you as as a human being? What is your relationship with this animal? This animal is, giving you permission essentially to take its life. You have to give yourself permission to do that as a hunter. That's the way I see it.
It's an intimate process, man. It's very
intimate, and it's very personal. And
to go from hunter to killer, it's a very intimate thing.
I think sometimes people misunderstand hunters because of so much that's out there. Because they see the celebration, and they see the pictures, and they see the video. But the true hunter, and I know that everybody here reflects that and represents that, is there is that emotional moment, and there's that spiritual piece where you're connected to that animal. When you're connected, and when you take that animal's life, you are connected forever.
Yeah.
We will, every animal that we're responsible for taking that animal's life, we will encounter that spirit at some point, and we're going to embrace each other because we had an understanding. We had an understanding about what this relationship was about. And, just the way there, we harvested that animal, we gutted it, the guts went to the earth, the bones have gone into the earth. At some point, we're going to go to the earth. We're going to go to the same place that they went to, and our spirit is going to fly. And at some point, we're going to be back together again, and we're going to have a conversation about what happened. So we have to be right with that. We have to be okay with that. So for me, it's about, if you're a hunter, you're also a killer. And that's okay. I thought about, when I really took this segment to heart, because at first I was kind of confused by it. I said, what do you mean, that moment of truth? And we haven't talked about, and this listener is right, is we get so caught up in all the other aspects of it, because we make the assumption that we're kind of all in the same place when it comes to that moment. But I'm glad that this listener, this hunter, asked this question, because it is important to check in with ourselves and with each other as hunters on what this really means when we're out there taking a life. It's a really very serious thing, and it's an important thing.
Yeah, it's not a game of basketball or a game of football. It's much more intimate than that.
It's
But
really,
even within, if you take a look at the journey for the youth, even yourself growing up and coming through, you know, when you first start out, that conversation, that ability has some shake to it in the beginning. It's still something that is not comfortable in some ways. It's not known in some ways. And then as you go through your journey, man, you get in that situation, you already understand who you are now as a hunter, as a killer, right? And there's a certain aspect. You and I talk about it. We talk about the fact that, you know, even an old lion is a lion, right?
100%.
There are lions, and then there are people, and I think you made a comment. You gave an example of another animal, and you said, well, like a chipmunk doesn't just become a lion, right?
Yeah.
Right,
You know?
an old squirrel was a young squirrel at one point. It's just that you don't suddenly become a lion. And an old lion is still a lion. An old lion. I consider myself an aging lion. I started out as a lion. And one of the things that I thought about, Coach, is okay, if I can think about, because we have relatives and we are manifestations of other animals, and I am a lion. I am a mountain lion. It's not a spirit animal. I am a lion. And so
Or that animal. That's exactly it. All right.
and when I think about, the mountain lion, that's 30 million years of evolution to become what I think is the perfect predator, right?
Yeah.
And so the lion's entire life is about hunting.
Yep.
It's about survival. It is about these things. And they make no apologies about it. That's who they are. And so if you're a hunter and you want to embark on this journey, you become a lion. You become that ultimate perfect predator. And you have to embrace every aspect of it. I see a similarity to words that are used, kind of overused and become cliche. The word warrior comes to mind. So people talk a lot about, oh, that's a warrior. That guy's a warrior. That girl's a warrior. And it's all in the context of fighting and being fierce. That's one aspect of being a warrior. Right. A true warrior is someone who is committed to their community, who will sacrifice themselves for the greater good, who is compassionate, who is kind, who understands the connection of all things. A true warrior is someone who is a person of service. Yeah. And they're willing to fight for all of those things. That's why the part comes to the forefront. And that's why, like, if someone's a fighter, they say they're a warrior. Not every fighter is a warrior.
No doubt.
Every warrior is a fighter.
But I'm gonna circle this back, and I'm gonna circle it back to, when you talk about that person, that hunter, even in the tribes, there are hunters and there are
gatherers,
great hunters, right? That are honored for that. What has created that difference, and it's an honorable position. For you to have been given a position as a hunter for the elders out there, that was an honor in that, and there's a reason for it, because the elders don't want you hunting for them, Chico, man, if you ain't bringing nothing back, bro, right? That's like, we gotta eat, man, we gotta eat, right? So what is it that creates that lion? What is it that separates that person from those other people? And I don't want to say wannabes. I don't want to say that. But from those people that are trying, but they haven't gotten there, right?
I think Chico hit it on the head, man. It's that commitment, that all in. I am all in, right? Commitment. You know, a chicken, it takes part in breakfast, but a hog is committed to breakfast, right? I mean, it's 100% totally different, right? But
Right.
we all, as hunters, we all have to be all in if that's what we're all those lions and all of those other, like Chico said, man, all of that fluff that's out there in the internet and everything else, you know, it is about the commitment level that we put to ourselves and our the end of the hunt is the harvest, right? And that is a commitment that we give unto ourselves. And it's ordained to us by our Lord and Savior, right? He put all of those animals for us to be ordained over and use and not abuse and not we don't
No,
hunt with
not at
malice
all.
we don't hunt with malice in our heart. It is to feed and give our family sustenance and shelter and everything else, right? So I want people to understand that. I want people to understand that there is a difference.
We hunt with passion.
Yeah.
I think a hunter, just like a lot of things, right? I think a hunter is born a hunter, and you may not know it. It may take someone to take an interest in you. It may be like, there's guys that I've guided that they were like, they said, I never knew how much this meant to me, how much I would enjoy this.
Yeah.
And if they were born hunters. There are people within my own family don't hunt because they don't feel. They tried because all the rest of us were hunters, and it was fine. It was fine. There was no problem with that. But the other thing that I'll say is this: as a hunter, you gotta understand the context within which that happens, and that's the landscape that we're talking about. And you have to remember that the homes and stuff that we live in weren't always built this way.
Mm-hmm.
You are part of the land. Yeah. You are part of the earth, and she's a part of you. If you think of yourself as separate, and sometimes I see these guys when we first start hunting, and they're walking kind of weird, and they're stepping on and after a while they walk different, and they move different, and they sound different, but you are part of the earth. You are part of that's our mother. And she will nurture you, and she will take care of you, but you got to kind of give into that. You got to give into understanding that you're a part of that. You're not separate from that, and you do not exercise dominion over her. She will set you straight in a hurry if you think that you're going to exercise dominion.
Yeah.
And so once you recognize that you're a part of it, that you're a part of her, and you're a part of this landscape, and you're related, and you're equals to the elk, and they're equals to you, and you're equals to the deer, the bear, and the grass, and the trees. Now you're part of something great. Now you're part of something powerful.
Higher power. Yep.
Part of it, right? You're the storms that come through when you're hunting, that you're a part of that storm, and they're a part of you. Every raindrop that comes down, you become a raindrop. Pretty soon you're like part of something. You're part of something amazing. You're not separate from it. You're not coming in, and you're not going to come in and you're going to dominate this hunting area. You're not going to come in and do what you do. You become a part of it, and that changes everything. And so then you can visualize that moment of truth. This caller who might be struggling with this, you can visualize it. And I would just advise that person, visualize it, go over in your head that moment over and over and over again. And even once it happens, it's going to surprise you how you feel. You're going to be overwhelmed with emotion. And that's a beautiful thing. But to me, that's what this question was about, is that moment when you know you're going to release that arrow, and you can't take it back. Yeah. And what happens in those moments afterwards when you see that arrow sink in? It's a good shot. There's blood. The animal starts to wobble. You know that animal, the life is leaving that animal, and what happens in those moments?
Yeah,
that's what we live for. That's what we hunt for, and those are the things that we have to be right with, right? We have to give ourselves permission to do that.
Yeah.
Coach, and and Chico, gosh, I tell you what, I respected before, but now I respect you even more because you know you are so on target right there. And yes, I'm excited. I'm passionate about calling in elk. I love doing that and to that heat of that moment. But really, you know, Genesis 27:3, your quiver and your bow and go out in the field and hunt game for me. You know, it's that spiritual moment also because you know you've got to have respect for these animals, and once they expire, the field care is so important as well. And to me, really,
You owe it to 'em.
it's about giving a prayer and thanking God for
Oh, man.
providing you, you know, that animal, you know, but that whole experience leading to that moment. And some, you know, it comes first day, first hour, first minutes, but others it goes till the very end. And to me, those till the very end is what gives you a great experience leading to that moment when you talk about the spirit of that animal, you know, leaving that animal, but you also have the meat that you're going to consume to provide you that nutritional value to your body as well. But to me, I love to take care of the animal. I love to skin and bone out my game, no hair on the meat, you know. And when I see young guys that are barely starting to learn how to do that, I take extra time to coach them up to do it right because
Right. Yep.
we got to take care of that meat. And
Makes a difference.
but you couldn't hit it any better about having the respect and you know to that moment because it is critical. And the touch of the release, gosh, most of the time I don't even remember me punching the trigger or whatever. I just know it flew and
Let go.
you know it happens and
Yeah.
it's done. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I've never every bull or elk I've ever killed, whether it be with my rifle or with a bow, especially with a bow, I've wept at every one of them.
Yep.
You know,
Mhm.
it is
Years.
Joe will tell you, I'm a big, strong fellow, but man, when I get around those critters and some, and it don't even have to be mine. It could be my clients or a really close friend. My buddy Luis Gonzalez, the leader of the Venezuelan mafia, he killed a bull with one of Chavez's guys, and I remember getting there to where the bull
Yeah.
was, and man, I'm telling you, I was so overcome with emotion for Luis,
Well,
and
and you
all
had a
that.
whole night of worry, man. I mean, you wanted to make sure that that animal's down. You didn't want to lose that animal.
That's right.
There's an honor and respect in that alone, you know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I've been with you on a lot of kills, but here's the other side of that. I'm I think I'm not like that.
Yeah.
And uh, but why and what makes that different? Everybody has to do that in their own way. For
Different.
me, I'm a lot like that mountain lion, man. That's
Yeah.
my prey. I get in that situation. It's like my eyes glaze over. I have a focus, and I go through and I don't lose that. It's just me and that connection. And you said something earlier. You said, come hell or high water. You know, for me, that is, I'm that predator. There's my animal right there. And I get in that position and it's almost, I don't know. I don't want to say business-like because it ain't business, but you know, it's a type of focus where I know what I can do, and I'm going to get the job done, and I'm going to bring home my harvest, and now I'm going to honor that. I
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
honor that,
Honor.
you know,
Absolutely. Yeah.
in my
Mhm.
way. And I think everybody that's always personal to everybody and how they feel and how they do that. And there's some people that don't show anything at all, you know. There's some people that, you know,
Stoic.
been trying to get it for so long that they're jumping up and down and screaming and, you know, fist bumping and everything like that. But that's how they got to let their own inside out, right?
Sure.
You know, what it means to them. And none of us can take that away because that is true emotion, that's true feeling, whatever it is. And for me, it's a whole different, you know, I've taken a lot of elk in my day, and I think I get more excited and emotional about Gil taking his, or
Yeah.
Chav
Mhm.
taking his, or
Your daughter or your son or
Mhm.
Oh man, absolutely.
or
Yeah.
even people that I'm
Yeah.
coaching and teaching, and I see
Yeah,
that
for sure.
genuine joy,
Yeah.
that brings something special, because to me, it's something that I expect to do. I'm like
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
I'm like that cat in the hills.
Yeah.
If I'm hungry, I'm going to eat. That's
Yeah.
how I hunt. I hunt hungry. And I'm going to make sure if I have an opportunity, I'm going to put myself in position to finish. That's that's how I have since I first started this journey, right? It was all about putting sustenance on our table, but at the same time, every moment, Chico was talking about the connection, right? I always wanted to feel like I was my environment, that I was moving through my environment, that I was part of my environment. I'm part of that natural order, that same elk. I understand what they're doing. I take in the smells, I take in the sights, I hear the squirrels, I hear the birds, I see how the grass is blowing. I take in all of that in all of my surroundings and become part of that. And in that, I become so much more effective and deadly because I am part of that whole thing that's going on, right? So, Gil is such a passionate dude. And I don't, and of this crew of people that I have here. That's why we're all together, because we're all very passionate. We demonstrate that passion, whether it's through our connection, through our life in our spirit world, whether it's our connection through our Lord, whether it's our connection through the honor, whether it's the connection, because I just love being out there, because that's my church, right?
Yeah.
All of us have that, right?
Yeah.
So, and Travis, you
Yeah.
haven't had a chance yet, man. And there was something that said, they said all in commitment. So if all in commitment, and that's one thing that I'm talking about, like if you've ever hunted with me, it's an all in, right?
Mhm.
Uh, I'm just an all in kind of guy. I don't do average. I will never do average, man. I
Yeah.
can't, it's not in me. So, what does all in mean to you?
Well, I guess for me, going back a little bit, it starts it's a mindset for me, because I'm not the kind of guy, I don't want to shoot an elk every year. I'm good with shooting an elk every 2 or 3 years. I'm totally happy with that. So me, it's a mindset where if I'm just going out with friends and stuff, I want to call in elk for them, and I want to see them be victorious and stuff like that. But for me, I guess it goes back to the very start, honestly. I wish I knew back then what I know now. And I'm pretty sure all you guys are in the same boat. The experience level, but beyond that, it's the elk behavior that really drives me. And once you become familiar with elk and their habits and what they do and how they move through their areas and just what they do and their sounds they make and the sounds they don't make, it's all that stuff. It all bundles together.
And the triggers. Yeah.
Yes. And once you get the experience of it, it becomes so much easier. Like elk hunting honestly becomes easier because of the behaviors that you've learned. And so that's where you can become that cougar in the trees. When you're hunting solo, I move a lot slower and I'm a lot quieter, and I don't call nearly as much. It's more stealthy, stalking, saying the right things, rubbing the trees at the right time. It's all that stuff versus when you're with another hunter that you're calling for. It's totally different mindset. Um, and then saying into that, when it is the time of, when you do want to shoot an elk and you do have an elk coming in on and you got him on the string, he's coming. Well, now a whole switch goes over me. It's almost like Rocky, it's like you become the eye of the tiger, and you just get that solid focus. And all of us shoot so much during the off season. you know, if you draw on an elk and you put that pin on him, you know you're taking his life. And because you've shot so much, you know, you're picking that small little tuft of hair and you're shooting that little tuft of hair, you know, and it's almost magical at that time. And it's like Chico was saying, you know, it's at that moment of release where you can't take it back.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, I guess, what it kind of boils down for me.
Very well put, Trav.
Absolutely. And, you know, one of the things also is that we are hunters, and it is our responsibility to also, you know, get proficient at what you're doing, to make a good shot placement, things like that. And I know that sometimes, you know, a twig might be in the way and, you know, wrong or whatever, but being responsible till the very end, you know, but there's guys, you know, that will stick 1, 2, 3 bulls. When do you stop? Come on, you know? And one thing that I've learned, and I've learned it actually here recently, hunting down in Texas, where they have dogs that go in there and trail these wounded animals. And just seeing the predator instinct now on the dogs, literally going there and taking them down, you know, biting them. And so you get to experience the real predators, which are wolves, lions, coyotes, and how devastating and bobcat, you know, and how they kill an actual elk or a calf, and the suffering that goes on when, as hunters, really, we put that arrow in the boiler room. There's no suffering. They expired very quick. To me, that's the responsibility. But getting to see all of that trailing and the dogs and vision, once they're done and you kill them and they're still gnawing, that's a killer lion instinct, you know. But that's how they survive in the real wild, you know, environment.
You said something that's really important there too, is that, you know, the proficiency part of it. Because I hear so many people that are hunting, they get so caught up with hitting the animal. You know, it's like, I can't tell you how many times I've talked to people and I said, how'd it go today? And they're like, well, I hit one. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, really? Because
what?
I think the people that are constantly successful, that are the closers, recognize what it takes to close. When you have a surgeon that's a great surgeon, they know how to get in and surgically get the job done and do it cleanly, and they're good at what they do. They're great at what they do. And I think, you know, as a competent, confident, and effective hunter, we know what shots to take. We know what shots not to take. We're proficient with our weapon, and we understand what it needs to do in order to put that animal down quick and fast. And we're not only proficient in our shooting, we're proficient in making sure that we are in an effective range and that it works within that animal's behavior set at the time. You know, we know when they're relaxed. We know when they're on edge. We understand that distance can cause a marginal shot, right? Yeah. I mean, there's
duck.
Parts to that.
We do so much. Yeah, we do so much deer hunting here in Texas. I just won't shoot at a whitetail that's edgy, right? Yeah. I know it's a recipe for disaster, and I sure won't shoot at him with his head down eating. I mean, it's just a recipe for disasters. So you have to know the prey, right? You have to know if those elk are alert and looking right at you and you're out 40, 50 yards from them, you know that bull's going to move when you cut it loose, man. Yeah. You know, if they don't have a clue that you're there, probably not even going to flinch when you cut it loose, right? Yeah. But there's so much difference in that, in understanding the prey that you're hunting, man, and then understanding the angles where his feet and his legs line up.
That's proficiency, bro.
100%.
That's proficiency.
And the guys that are consistent harvesters or killers every year understand that better. And I don't think that they understand it out of the gate because they haven't failed enough. Experience is the number one teacher in this game, man. It really is. And if I could give anybody that and inject it in them, they would be much better elk hunters, much better killers, right? But I think it takes a little bit of failing to understand, to be more proficient about what we're looking for at finishing, right?
So something that just something that occurred to me as everybody's talking is, I'll hunt whatever tag I can get.
Yeah.
It's a rifle tag, a bow tag, a muzzle.
Yeah.
I've hunted with all three.
Yeah.
And I can hit a target. I can sight in my rifle. I can sight in my bow. I can sight in my muzzleloader, and I shoot a lot.
Yeah.
And I know I can hit a target. But I'm way more confident in my ability to hit an animal than I am hitting a target.
Absolutely.
So when you get to that point, going back to this listener's question, when you get to that, that's the moment of truth. When you're confident, and you're even more confident in your shot at an animal than you are at your shot at a target.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You're a killer. You're a hunter and you're a killer.
I'd much rather shoot at animals than I do.
That's an important distinction to really understand, is because some people are like, oh man, I can hit a target, I can hit, and I don't know.
Matter.
I'm way more confident when there's an animal standing in front of me than a target.
Right.
So something that I want to add to that, Chico, is I think a problem is with a lot of people, that weapon is a part of their gear. It's almost like the pack. It's almost like, their bino. It's something that they use occasionally while they're hunting. People, when we first started this thing, and we started talking about it, I told people that when in the morning, when I would reach and put my hand on my bow, as soon as I gripped that bow, something changed in me, because that bow, my bow is an extension of me. I'm intimate with that bow. I'm intimate with that weapon. I get behind it and I know what it's going to do. It knows what I'm going to do. And those energies together are real tough to beat, man. And actually that's been the tough part of my journey in the last 2 years is I've gotten a little bit away from that intimacy and more into a weapon. And so that is a little bit of a struggle for me, because and that's just a whole nother thing. But if you're not getting behind that bow, if you're not getting behind that gun, if you don't know what it's going to do from positions, leaning out, down on your knees, having to shoot up a hill, down a hill, having to go through and over something that's actually in, because you understand the trajectory of your arrow. When you understand all of that, when you are that proficient, and look, proficiency is not being able to stand up, your feet apart, your shoulder pointed, and shooting and put an arrow in a pie plate at 30 yards. Yes, that's target practice, but proficiency is being ready to shoot the different types of shots that you're going to encounter out in the woods, the different variables that are going to happen. Proficiency comes from shooting out in a light rain every now and then. It comes from shooting in the wind so that you know what happens when you're shooting in the wind, right?
Yeah.
Practice how you play.
Absolutely, man. It comes from not using a rangefinder and knowing how to shoot with your pins and recognizing 20, 30 yards and knowing that and being ready to shoot that. Those are things that make you proficient. Those are things that make you deadly.
It comes from being willing to have your nose bloodied and your knuckles torn up to protect your weapon too.
Yes.
I was hunting with my older brother Lee one time, and he comes out and his nose is bleeding. He's got a cut on. I was like, "What happened?" He's like, but I didn't let my rifle,
My rifle scoped him, huh?
Ground. He was willing to do a face plant in order to do that. That's part of that commitment,
Yeah.
So Ralph, we can continue that proficiency into, so we talked about with your weapon, we've talked about your proficiency in knowing and understanding shots, right?
Yeah, right?
But what about proficiency in that behavior and in calling?
Yeah. Well, and that's practice again. And I'll guarantee you, Joe, I already know I can throw you a diaphragm. I don't care which one. You're going to get on there and you're going to get the sounds you want because you're a master at that. And, you know, I don't care. You get a blow, push, whatever call, you're going to play with it. And you'll pick it up really quick.
You make it work.
You do make it work. But on the other hand, and one thing that I think is really important is that not only elk, and I know we keep talking elk, but I don't care what animal we're hunting.
Right.
You know, and really, I don't care if I'm hunting for myself or if I'm guiding hunters. It seems like I always go through this anxiety of building up. You know, I was just telling my wife the other day, you know, I was taking a cow elk hunter last weekend. And I go, man, I'm like already kind of stressing because, man, where are they going to be? What are we going to do? How are we going to do that? How are we going to get them out back? You know, all of that's going through my head. And that's just a cow hunt. Well, same thing. Javelina hunting down here in the desert or whatever. You're going to go, you got to get mentally ready for that whole experience.
Totally.
And really, Chico, you hit it on the head, bringing it all together, you know, the respect to the animal and gosh, because we are, but the edibles, it's so good. That's all I eat is wild game. You know,
Me too, brother.
I'll eat beef every now and then because we go out to a restaurant or something, but I
don't buy it.
And that's why I like hunting animals now because I eat them. I eat them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's what I want to tell people is, man, so I think one of the reasons for my success is my bow just doesn't shoot at elk. It shoots at squirrels. It shoots at rabbits.
Everything, man.
And I've hunted bullfrogs with my bow, man. And there's
Grouse.
yeah,
I've seen them shoot chickens.
Groundhogs, yeah.
Love them grouse, baby.
Yeah.
Turkey hunting. Oh, God.
Love turkey hunting, man.
That's one of the best preparation.
And the hardest animal to draw on and kill with your bow. I mean, they're extremely difficult.
I got you all beat. We used to shoot grasshoppers with our BB guns.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
no, but your
Love
BB
it.
gun. When we were kids,
That's
my
awesome.
BB gun became an extension of me. Right?
Oh man, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Killed lots of game with my BB gun.
That's how I started hunting, was shooting
Yeah.
squirrels. You could shoot them right in the eyeball with your
Yeah.
BB gun. One shot, you kill them.
On animals, I've taken 2 shots on animals with a rifle in the last 3 years. And those 2 shots were both kills. And the reason they was because of my childhood behind that BB gun and behind
That's
that
right.
22, you know, doing all those things so that it's
Wrist
all
rockets.
part of it. Yeah. It's all just part of
Blow
it.
guns.
And
Yeah.
because of my instinctiveness with a with a bow, I can take a pistol and not have to look down it. I mean, I'm able to point and shoot things, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, it's that intimacy. And that intimacy, y'all, if you really and I think that's one of the things that we're going to talk about, and we can even break down in different areas. Intimacy. Intimacy in what? You can talk about intimacy with the weapon, intimacy with the environment, intimacy with that animal behavior, intimacy with calling, being able to and comfortable and feeling that within that. Because I can just tell you this, man, you know, that right there, calling, being able to be part of that animal's environment, to be able to convince that animal that you're something that you're not, and to be able to do that and create encounters is so huge, because if I didn't have that, I wouldn't be able to close the deal, right? I have to put myself in an encounter so I can close the deal. And then when I'm going to close the deal, my head, it's so funny, man. It's just like a quarterback in a game. If you've ever watched a quarterback going in a game, when he takes that hike, he's got all these checks that he's doing. He's not looking where that receiver is. He knows where the receiver is going to be. He's checking what everything else is happening in the environment to make the right decision. When I get in a situation where there's an animal coming into me, my body automatically now puts me in front of something. I'm automatically knowing, you know, my distance of my body and of my draw from anything like twigs, branches that are around me. I'm looking at where those animal lanes, where those lanes are that animal could possibly go. I'm quarterbacking all of that. And if that critter starts to go someplace where I'm not going to get an opportunity, this boy is rolling out. To use a quarterback term, I'm rolling out and putting myself in position so I can make that shot, right?
Yeah.
Because it's what Gil said before. In me, and when I say I'm aggressive, I'm very aggressive. I would rather blow up and me cause myself to lose an opportunity than to be passive and let the opportunity just blow away in the dust.
Yeah.
Right.
100%, Joe. In ever more prevalent than when I got to hunt with the great Travis O'Shea and his boys in Canada. We call a bull in first day. Bull about runs us all over, and he's just in some of the thickest stuff you'll ever see if you've ever hunted in Alberta, Canada. It's a phenomenal place to hunt. We learned so much there. But that bull comes storming in on us, and I mean, 8 feet one way and he's dead, and he decides to go a different direction, and he stands at about 13 yards looking at us, and it looks like this to try to shoot him in, right? And I'm like, oh my God, he didn't know who we were or what we were. He just knew he didn't see another cow elk, right? So he just bails off. Well, when he bailed off and left, guess where this guy went? I bailed off with him and left with him, right? In tow. And both of Travis's guys are like, where in the hell is he going, man? I'm like, I'm going to kill that. I don't know what y'all are doing, but I'm going to run down there and kill that bull, right? And we called him back. We called him back to within 50 yards. And Brian almost got an opportunity to let it go. He just didn't feel confident enough to let the shot go. But I called that bull back to 50 yards. But if I just let him walk out of my life, he's just going to walk out of my life. I'm going to go kill him, man. You know, they were freaked out. They were like, we have never seen anybody run after a bull. I'm like, well, man, he didn't know. He didn't know we were humans. He just knew he didn't see another elk. So he decided, man, this ain't a good scenario. I'm out, right? But when I bugled and started cow calling right at him, that really confused him, you know?
See, that's knowing the elk behavior there, Gil, because
For sure.
you went after him again and knowing that it's so thick, that bull's only going so far, and then he's going to stop and turn around, and he's going to come right back into the calling again.
Yeah.
So you hit the nail perfect there. That's...
And I think them boys learned something. You can do that. You can get away with being a little more aggressive, right?
You just keep talking to them. Keep talking to them.
Sure.
Yeah.
I learned so much being in Canada, and you know, I'm pretty young to the game as far as elk hunting goes, and I learn every time.
You used to be, bro.
No, I still am. I mean, Joe's got 60 years of hunting, and you know, Mr. Ramos, I'm sure you got 20 or 30.
How many years I got hunting?
I said 60.
How many?
He just got that, man.
Years old, man.
He just got that, Mr. Ramos. Don't let him lie to you, man. You know he's like 80.
If we asked Armando that, he would say Joe's got 80.
Yeah, exactly, dude. So at the end of the day, I learned so much, man. I've been so lucky to be part of the coolest crew. When Joe and I decided to do this a few years back, it was like, man, you know, Joe had the vision of where this has come from, right? And where it's going to. And I'm a coach by heart. That's what I love to do. Yeah. And at the end of the day, teaching men how to do this, what we do, Ralph, Chico, Travis, Joe, it's hard, man. But it's the hard that makes it beautiful. Yeah. Right? Yeah. If it was easy, everybody do it. And some people are trying, but what we do is so daggum difficult. It's what makes it great, you know? And being able to learn from guys like Joe and Mr. Ramos and Travis, being able to be with those guys, these guys are exceptional callers, exceptional woodsmen, right? You just got to be humble enough to listen and learn a little bit. And that helps me seal the deal every time I go out. I lean back on those experiences. I lean back on those teachings, man. I lean back on a lot of things I heard from Mr. Ramos and Chico tonight. I mean, it's the ability to be able to take the education and apply it to exactly what the scenario is. I think that is the biggest game changer, Joe, is our ability to take the education we have and apply it to the scenarios that we're dealt in the woods, right? I think that's a game changer in itself. I think understanding that, yeah, all of it's got to go together. Understanding the habitat, the wind, drawing your bow, all that. But it is the ability to have the experience, to take the education that we have in every day and apply it.
So let me ask you this question, and I'll let you guys jump in, whoever wants to. Can you gain elk hunting intimate proficiency without being in the elk woods?
No.
No, I disagree.
I do. I disagree as well, but not in a like. What are you talking about, man? I think Chico's coming from a different side of that, so I kind of see where Chico's coming from.
Well, that's all right. Me and Chico are going to go. We'll go at it here in a few minutes.
I can be educated. But I think if you're going to attain true that intimate proficiency, you got to experience it. It's like, I talk to my brother's a pilot, and we talk about he's on a simulator a lot. And I say, okay, how close is the simulator? He said, pretty damn close, but it's nothing like
the real thing.
Yeah.
So if you want to attain that ultimate level, you have to feel, you have to smell the elk. You can't smell the elk on a podcast.
No.
You can't feel the cold wind on your neck saying, oh shit.
It's coming. Yeah.
We can talk about it. We can visualize it. You can't, all the things that we're talking about, if you don't experience yourself, and that's kind of like going back to this original question. This hunting is about really learning who you are. It's about learning yourself. And that moment of truth that this guy was asking about, you got to trust what you've learned about yourself in that process. If you trust what you learn about yourself, that moment of truth that this guy is asking about is going to be his moment. It's not going to be anybody else's. It's going to be his, and he's going to own it, and it's going to be his experience, and he's going to experience it. Nobody else is going to be able to tell him what it was. The other thing that I'll say about that is this, and that's one of the reasons that I commit to ElkBros and to Joe's vision and Gilbert's vision of what this is because I learned this. Somebody told me this. One of my mentors, he's an Indian lawyer, and he told me years and years and years ago, he said, there are a lot of stereotypes about Indian people. There are a lot of things that people misunderstand because of TV and Hollywood and whatever else. So people's interactions with you, they're going to judge every other Indian in the world based on their interaction with you. So you better damn well not screw it up. That's what he told me.
Too much is given, much is required.
You conduct yourself with honor, with integrity, and let that experience they have with you, let them come away saying, oh, so that's what a native person is about. Yeah. And so hunters is the same way.
No doubt.
There's a lot of stereotypes and a lot of things that people think about hunters. So their interactions with us are going to be one of two things. It's going to be the experienced hunters, where it's like, gangster recognizes gangster,
real versus real,
warrior. And then it's the rookies and the novice that say, okay, I can get my mind around this because this is something honorable and this is something that I can pursue and I can do it in a good way. And that's what ElkBros stands for.
Yeah. So when I said that I disagreed with Chico, it was because of this. No, you can't smell an elk on a podcast, but you can smell that cow in the field. You can smell the flowers that are going in the back. You can smell that stagnant water. You can learn to take in smells, right? You can't feel that wind on your back of your neck that you're in the mountain, but you can feel the same thing when you're in those deer woods. You can feel that stick under your foot when you're in the squirrel woods. And so you can become proficient at using that woodsmanship of using your hunter skills so that, and even like calling, right? So a lot of these guys that we work with the calling, and there's so many resources to do that. But yes, it's going to be different when you get in that actual situation, but that learning curve is going to go from this to this because you're going to be able to quickly
Speak the
adapt and
language.
change to what's happening out there. So even though that intimacy isn't a total relationship at the time, you can start building that relationship so that when you get there, it's going to click a whole lot better without
Yeah.
you having to go through 7 days of not finding an elk, or 7 days of blowing this, or not understanding the wind, or not understanding the 50-50 rule or a crosswind. I've told people for years, Ralph, man, I would rather have a crosswind any day because my eyes are what's going to see in front, my nose is going to pick up what's from the side, right? And how that cone is going down here is going to be, all right, I might lose something down there, but I'm gaining so much more because of it, right? So, there's things that you can do that make you a predator, that you can learn, and you can become intimate with that weapon. You can become intimate with those calls so that they're not uncomfortable. I think there's more people intimate with their camo breeches than they are with their elk calls.
Yeah, their gear in general.
Yeah, when in reality you could go out there in blue jeans and a plaid shirt and kill elk if you can call them into distance.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So I get where you're coming from, boss. And what you said rings loudly. However, I do understand where Chico's coming from. The experience level of hunting elk is so much more than we can just talk about on a podcast, right?
Yeah, but
but I can tell you this. I can tell you this. If you don't prepare for the fight, you won't have the right bullets in your gun, right? So we need to be prepared for what's coming at us, and a little bit of education is never going to hurt us. So when we get in the fight, we can at least have something to follow.
Yeah. And I'm not discounting at all the value of the exchange of information and the
Sure.
I mean, even coming back to camp at the end, at the end of the evening, people talking, I've learned so much that way.
Yes.
I was more focused on the question in terms of that kind of intimacy and proficiency.
Yes.
You gotta be able to apply it. And so this is invaluable. I wouldn't be sitting here, I've been here 2.5 hours sitting here with you guys. I would not have done, do it if I didn't think there was some value to it. Most.
Well, it's only 2.5 because you showed up a half hour early, bro.
Educational.
Joe, but stop and think about this, Joe. Stop and think about you and I, how old and how long we've been doing this. I mean, 33 years is a long time ago. And you stop and look and reflect. There weren't too many guys doing elk seminars back in those days when we first started elk hunting. And right now, that's why I've done elk seminars since 91. And they've only gotten better because my experiences of mistakes is,
there you go, brother.
Now I have
That's the true educator, right? The mistakes that you make.
And that's why now to have an intimate elk mastering ability, relationship type of thing, no. But they if somebody was fresh and never elk hunted and went to our seminars and gathered the information that we're
Base
gathering,
camp.
they're going to be 10 times better off than I ever was.
Sure.
On deck.
We see it every day. We see it in our listeners that write us emails and send us photos of them, their first time elk hunters, and they go out there and punch their tag. It makes me want to throw up because it took me a good long while, right? But now look, a part of that was because I was stubborn. But at the end of the day, there are so many guys that go out there and punch our first adventure camp. Adam Messner goes out there and punches his tag day one. And this guy hadn't seen an elk in his life other than
even Onyx and the technology and everything. And that's why I'm really, and when I was serving on the Game Commission for 6 years here in New Mexico, I was all about fair chase
Yeah.
and cameras. When they started with drones, I was involved with, we don't allow drones. That's not fair chase.
Mhm.
And then when you look at cameras, if a guy wants to use a camera, that's fine, but he's going to have to go out there and check. But when it's cellular or now satellite, I'm sorry, that's not fair chase.
Yeah.
Now I have mixed feelings for predator control, but as far as elk hunting, I don't think so. Go out and experience it and really learn what we're talking about today. To me, those are the true elk hunters. And not that we're losing hunters every day. And I think amongst hunters, there's a lot of arguing and bickering and jealousies and all that, when really we've got to unite right now more so than ever. Because these animal rights people are gaining ground every day. And really, I'd like to challenge this group to really promote more people, that are new to hunting as well, and really to hit legislation. Because right now with the wolves and the Gila, you know what? If we don't have legislative statute right now in place, Game and Fish cannot regulate, the rules to hunt wolves here in the future.
So that's actually a great discussion to have, and I want to redefine that sometime, because legislative action has to be able to enable the professionals to do their job, right? I don't like the fact that legislation does the job over top of the professionals. So that's something I'd like to clarify again. But I want everybody, our listeners know, and this is why our listeners like this, is I don't have Chico and Gil and Ralph and Travis here to agree with me. I was so pumped when Chico said no, because I would have probably been the no person on the other side if it wasn't. Because it's this discussion, it's this perspectives, it's all of this that these people get to hear, and they learn from that, right? Because and that doesn't mean we have to be disagreeable with each other, but by finding different perspectives so that people can learn from that, because all of us bring something different to the table.
And we have respect and we have respect for one another in a disagreement. That we may disagree in something. We still respect each other's opinion, right to their opinion. And at the end of the day, a lot of times it's just a different way of looking at things that we need to be more open to.
It's kind of like, when we were talking about, like, Chico was one of my athletes that I coached in football, and I could teach him reads, and I could actually talk about the guy that's going to be in front of him and talk about his tendencies and talk about what he's going to want to do. But until he feels that first pop from that dude, he doesn't know how to read it, right?
Everybody's got a plan till you get punched in the mouth.
Yeah, but at least if you have some of that information, once you get that pop, now you know how to deal with it. And that's what I want all of our listeners out there, because, we have had all those letters from first timers that have gone out, just listening to the podcast that have killed elk. And
in base camp, our base camp app.
But we have people too that get in situations and they're not able to capitalize. Like, what did I do wrong? And you know what? You can ask Ralph, who's been a 30-year guy. You can ask Chico. Sometimes our answer is simply this: that's elk hunting.
It wasn't his day to die. I mean,
and you move on, man. You don't. You learn from things, right, Trav?
Yeah, and it's a mindset, because if your whole goal is to shoot an elk with a bow, you can't go pick up your rifle as soon as opening season starts for rifle season. Keep your bow in your hand and keep persistent at it, and really, bear down and get it done with your bow.
Gil's going to say, if you want to put meat on the table, go get that gun.
I say this all the time: bows are for hunting, rifles are for killing. Ask anybody that understands, right?
I've killed way more elk with the bow than I have with a rifle. But.
But I can tell you this: every elk I saw that I called in with a bow, I couldn't kill with a bow. I could have killed him with a rifle.
You could have,
So what I was guiding this weekend, one of my dear dear friends, man, Luis Gonzalez, and we were bow hunting deer, and we had a deer come in, and he just did not want to cooperate and get in the right position. There were other deer pushing him around, and it's the pre-rut down in South Texas, and these deer are really filling each other out. And there was one dominating the area where we had some acorns under an acorn tree, and these guys, they get to fighting one another and move him off the feed, right? And it's like, oh my gosh, Luis. And I had my rifle with me in case there were some hogs that came out or predators or whatever. And Luis looked at me and he goes, hey man, he said, we can shoot him with the rifle, huh? I said, we can, but we're not.
We're not.
He goes, what do you mean, man? I said, no, we're doing this with a bow. Come hell or high water. If it hair lips the governor, we're going to get it done with this bow, or we ain't getting it done.
You built those arrows for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna put them to use, and he did. It worked out. But we were patient and persistent, and
persistent.
Management plans don't work with a bow. If you're managing a deer herd, you better get that lead out and go to work. Done. Because it's harder. It's a lot harder with a bow.
That's why some people will look at our ElkBros adventures, looking at our hunts, our coached hunts, and they'll see where, October 1st is generally on private places as a rifle hunt. And with us, it's going to be an archery hunt. And that's because we are teaching people to be intimate, proficient elk archery hunters at that point, and we can take it to that point. So it gives us that opportunity. So that's another idea.
It's gonna be off the chain at that time too, man.
You know what, Cole?
Yeah.
You brought up a really good point, and it made me think about your original question about can you achieve those things? And I remember actually a specific game that we prepped for. It was Trinidad. Remember, we ended up there playing in about 18 inches of snow.
Mm-hmm.
And they had this receiver who he's way taller than me and bigger than me and probably faster than me and just not meaner than me. But and we prepped for him, and I remember keeping him. The way I had to play that guy was use the sideline, bump him as much as possible, just kind of get dirty, mix it up with him. But it didn't, for me, right? This is just me. It didn't become an intimate thing until that first hit.
Yeah.
But I took everything that you told me, the film, we had watched some film on him. And that's the same thing that I would tell the hunters that I've coached so far with ElkBros, because they ask so many.
They do.
One question, and I'm like, in the world. And so I try to answer the questions, but I always end my answer with this. I said, but you won't really know until you're in the
middle of it. Yep.
So you're in that position. I tell you. And, we can talk about what to expect and what the last 50 elk that I've been on have done. Yeah. And you don't know until you actually go through it. And to me, that's that intimate moment. And you have to experience it firsthand.
100%.
But all the stuff, and that's why this process is so important, is because these folks are hungry
for the information.
And they're hungry for knowledge, and they're hungry for the stories. I come from a storytelling tradition. That's how we pass on knowledge. We didn't have written language. So everything that we knew, thousands of years of history, was through stories.
Yeah.
And so stories are very powerful, and I think that's what we're trying to do here. Is we're trying to do storytelling so that people can apply it in the way that they do things. But that intimacy to me doesn't come until you're actually doing it.
No, and you're exactly correct in that. That's when the light bulbs go off. But that's the thing, though, is when you have all of that information, you have something to have in the gut
Yes,
from
yeah,
information that you have, because it's hard to write on instinct if you don't have anything to draw from, right?
That's right.
At
Yeah.
least if you have something, because I mean, you take a look at the guys we coach this year. With all of the major
100%.
failure points we coach, some of the main things are is you never get behind something, right?
Right.
But
right.
yet we had
Mhm.
Hunter that got behind something, right?
Draw your bow.
Draw your bow. Yeah, we had
Draw
a
your
hunter
bow,
that didn't
baby.
draw their bow. They pulled up their rangefinder, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to have that happen because you got to be in, you got to be in the fire, man. You got to
Yeah.
get into it, right? But at least that learning process, and some people
Move.
are real good at converting that, man. So,
Yeah. Like I
now-
said,
Well,
it's taken that information, that
Yeah.
education, and learning how to apply it in the scenarios that you're in the field. Those guys that can do that at a rapid rate, and they're the most successful at what we do, Joe.
Sure.
Because because we have the ability to take that setting or that scenario and work the problem, okay, in a dynamic environment, not a static environment like we're in right here. A dynamic environment, those guys can work the problem and then figure it out, right? And it takes a special skill set. It takes some
It
time.
does. Yeah.
It really does. And
Yeah.
there are better guys at it than others.
Yeah.
Can it be learned? I believe so. I believe it can be learned. I believe it takes a tremendous amount of work to learn it, right?
Yeah. Well, and they have to learn to believe it. I guarantee you there's a lot of people that learn this stuff that don't believe it's going to work sometimes until they've blown a few things, right?
Absolutely.
And you'll
Like
see it.
rattling elk.
Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
people are like, I tried it, it doesn't work. Well, it didn't work for you. How many times did you try it? But
Right.
now
right.
once you get it, it's like calling in coyotes,
Yeah.
you got to do at least 2-3 stands and get it
Yeah.
going.
So
You know, I hunted with Trav and his crew in Canada, and we were on those bulls early the first couple of days, and then they shut up. We had some wolves move in and things like that. And Trav said, "Look, I know these elk around here. I know their tendencies. Y'all go in there and don't sound like cows. Go in there for 45 minutes to an hour and just talk like calves, little calves." He said, and that bull sooner or later is going to get frustrated and he's going to pop off and let you know exactly where he's at. I'm like, we went in there and me and Dylan went for 45 minutes. We wore that bull out, and then all of a sudden, I look at him and I'm like, I can't believe it worked. But Trav knew. Why? Because Trav been in the trenches before. He knew what those elk were going to do when they shut up and they had the predators around them and stuff. He knew the trigger to that bull, right? I saw it this year, and when we were guiding our hunters or our clients, when we were coaching, I found one little thing that would fire bulls up. Right, one little call, and it was stupid, but every time I did it, a bull would bugle out of his bed or bugle to let us know that they're there, how to set up, where to go set with the wind, and it was easy when you figured it out. But it took me going through, oh my gosh, so many different things to try and get the job done, right? But I don't even get to that if I don't know what to use or what not to use, right?
And next year it's going to be something totally different.
100%.
It'll be
100%, Trav. A couple years ago, it was a chuckle. If you could chuckle, you could get a bull to come to you, right?
Yeah.
If you couldn't chuckle, good luck.
Yeah.
I mean, it was crazy.
This has been absolutely tremendous. And Ralph, I know that I actually kind of put a little bit of a halter on you because I know what Ralph Ramos talks about, and I know the knowledge that you have, and I actually want to have you back on this show so that we can give you some rein, and so that we can talk about technique and we can talk about strategy and some of those other things. But I wanted you here for the other aspect. I wanted you here for the purpose of what this show was. And I so appreciate you coming in and being a part of our campfire. You see how we work now, right?
Absolutely.
When I first got on, I was like, I know this Ralph from somewhere. I'm racking my brain going, I've seen Ralph somewhere. I've met him. I just couldn't figure it out. And then it dawned on me. We called that the 2015 World Elk Calling Championships.
Oh, yeah.
And I got proof right here. I don't know if you guys can see that.
Right.
That's cool. That's right.
That's when
awesome.
I was third in the world. Ralph, you place fifth or sixth there.
Right. Fifth.
Yeah. And so we got to share the same stage together.
That's awesome, man.
Way
That's
back
so
then.
cool.
Like there's it is.
That's
very
right.
Cool,
That's so
man.
cool.
Very
So
cool.
I just wanted to share that. Like
Yeah.
we're standing not very often you get to run into someone a second time like that, you know.
Right. Thank you for bringing that up, Travis. Yeah,
That's neat.
that was just a few years ago. But
Yeah.
yeah.
It's going to be
But no,
10
thank you,
years, man.
Joe,
Yeah.
Yeah, next year will be 10 years for sure.
and ElkBros. Thank you for inviting me tonight. And yeah, you made me, part of your team here this evening. And I want to continue doing anything I can help with. Please don't hesitate to reach out.
Well, we're going to have you back because we're going to let you, like I said, man, we're going to unleash the Ramos, man. And
Yeah.
we're going to let you do what you do.
I absolutely love your passion, Mr. Ramos. I mean,
Yeah.
it's definitely evident in the pursuit of elk, and that's what we're extremely passionate about. Joe, myself, the crew. I mean, we don't run with guys that aren't.
Right.
It's really a passion of ours. Some guys enjoy football and golf, and I play a little bit of golf because I have to, not because I really love it. I'd like to call it something else, but most of those four-letter words are taken. But at the end of the day, if you play golf like me, but at the end of the day, I can't thank you enough for coming on. It's so always good to see my brother Chico and Travis.
Yes.
I mean, Travis, if you haven't tried any Wapiti River elk calls, Mr. Ramos, I 100% can tell you that you won't be disappointed if you blow a Wapiti River call. They're fantastic. We blow them. And, the attention to detail that Travis and his crew does in Canada is just phenomenal, man.
Oh, he's all right.
Yeah.
He's okay. And Chico's always good to have you here with us, brother. He's just a sound reason and a great coach. Nobody works harder in camp than Chico for sure, man.
Well, if you guys are going to be around in mid-March, I'm going to be in Reno. So if you guys aren't far from there, there's a sportsman show in Reno I'll be at. So
Awesome, brother. What dates? March what?
March 14th to the 16th,
16th, 15th, 16th, because we're at
You're
we're
in
at
Vegas.
we're in Vegas at the
Yeah.
tournament, Mountain West tournament. No,
Gotcha.
so
Yeah.
Are you any of you going to Harrisburg in February?
no, we
I
won't.
heard about Harrisburg. Is it a good one to go to, Mr. Ramos?
I hear it's the largest one to go to. I'll be
it's
there
a
with
big-
X, and
Big outfitter show as well. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It's a huge show. Yeah, I've heard
And-
lots about it.
and Gil, we're going to close out here, but just so everybody knows, you and I will be getting together, and we're going to do a little special piece, just you and I, letting everybody know about ElkBros Adventures, what we're doing, what's available, and we're very excited about that. So we're going to.
Joe's taking the hit away. Joe's taking the hit away from you guys. But I look forward to doing that piece because it's something we're really passionate about. It's on fire right now. ElkBrosAdventures.com. You need to go check it out. I'm not going to get too far into it because I know he wants to do something more intimate. But guys, if you like what we're doing, please subscribe, rate, and review us. You have to go to Apple Podcasts or iTunes to review us, and be sure to include your name and where you're from so you can get in on our spinning winter wheel drawing. And you can check out more elk hunting content at ElkBros.com. And just a reminder, if any of our listeners would like their questions answered on the show, just send your questions to Joe at ElkBros.com. Again, guys, thank you so much for all of the input, everything. Joe, thanks for putting this panel together. These are fantastic people. But like we say down here in the Lone Star State, fellas, husbands, kiss your wives. Wives, kiss your husbands. Hug your babies. Keep your broadhead sharp and your powder dry. And we'll see you next week right here on Blue Collar Elk Hunting.
Peace,
Till next
peace,
time.
everybody.
All right.
God bless you guys.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Ralph,
Back
thank
at
you very much, brother.
Thank you.
Been a
And
pleasure.
for all our
Ralph and
grinders
Chico.
out there, here's some more music from our brother Tony Wintrip to close out the show.
Oni. See you guys. Hey, Merry Christmas.
Merry
Merry
Christmas.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas to all of you, brother.
God bless you guys.
I had this old dream many years ago. I started writing songs, not knowing where I'd go. when I left the diamond where I played ball. I started raising babies, I had a change in life. I took the drifter's road, ended up with one ex-wife, but I never gave up on it. Yeah, I knew how bad I wanted a brand new me. I hit a few bumps in the road, but I kept driving on, running big machines and thinking about writing songs. Now I'm up against it, time to walk away. I'm showing signs of getting older now, but they always say, don't quit on me. Don't quit on me. Things are changing daily, I'm falling way behind. Gotta clear my head and maybe add a little salt and lime and enjoy my freedom. Got a few wanna love, wanna leave them upside down.